Your restoration business may be in trouble and you may not even know it. That's because there's these torpedoes under the water that come at your restoration business that you can't really tell that they're even coming. Your employees won't tell you about them, your gut feeling won't tell you about them, and you probably won't notice them by just walking around. You'll need some sort of tools to dig in a little bit deeper to notice those torpedoes. In this video, I want to go over those 5 signs that your restoration business is about to go underwater. I want to give you some solutions on how you could avoid those torpedoes. Let's dive in. So the first torpedo under the water that can absolutely kill any restoration business is linked to cash flows, and that is turn on receivables. And the concept of turn on receivables is how quickly a restoration company actually collects the amount of money that they have actually invoiced. And if your turn on receivables is over 45 days, that is in the red, and you will probably suffer significantly if you can't find alternative ways to put cash into the business. I wrote an entire guide on this. You can click the link below. At Albi, we have a turn on receivables guide. But the number one solution to turn on receivables, I actually explained in my book, Restoration Millionaire. And that's the 48-hour rule. And basically, between the time that you actually complete your work as a restoration company to the time that the check hits the bank, there's somewhere between 12 to 15 touches between you and the homeowner, you and the insurance adjuster, so on and so forth. If you allow the time between those touches to lapse to maybe a week to 2 weeks, now it takes you 12 to 15 weeks to actually collect the funds. But if you follow the 48-hour rule and you shorten the time between the touches, it's the number one way to boost your turn on receivables. I have many clients and colleagues that have turn on receivables sub 30 days within the restoration industry. So yes, it is doable. The second hidden torpedo under the water is actually gross margin. And if your gross margin is less than 40% for whatever work you're doing, even if it's reconstruction work, you are absolutely in trouble and your business cannot probably operate the way it should. So gross margin is basically calculated by taking your total revenue and subtracting all those direct job costs like employees, supplies, labor, vehicles, and so on and so forth. And then you're left with your gross profit margin, which is a percentage of that. And if it's less than 40%, your business is not running optimally and not producing enough off of that. There are 2 ways that you can fix gross margin. One of them is you're probably not budgeting properly, and I actually have a whole video on how to budget work properly in the link below. And then the second thing that you should actually consider if you have a really poor gross margin is, are you actually doing work that you're good at? A lot of times early on in their careers, restoration contractors start as mitigation people and they expand to reconstruction work very quickly. And now they start doing this reconstruction work, but they are really bad at it and they don't want to let it go. The best thing you could do for your gross margin is to focus away from the low gross margin services like reconstruction that you're probably bad at and go out and get more high gross margin work like mitigation work. The third torpedo under the water is actually probably the most important, and that's related to employee morale. A lot of times we run our technicians and project managers into the ground by just giving them way too much work. And on the surface level, it could feel really great because we're bringing in millions to the company. We're super busy. There's a lot of work going through the company. It's every business owner's dream. But at the end of the day, if your revenue per production employee, meaning the total amount of revenue that you've invoiced divided by the total number of employees that you have actively producing that is greater than 60,000, you're in the red, and that's a recipe for disaster. Your employees are probably very overworked, very tired, and will probably quit on you, and then you'll have a shortage of staff and you won't be able to deliver on those results. You can actually improve that number in 2 ways. One is going out and hiring more employees and actively monitoring that number every week, and when it spikes, hiring more people in. And the second way is actually saying no to some projects. Maybe you start cherry picking projects when you have your revenue per employee actually super high, and maybe pick only certain types of projects. So that way your employees aren't overworked and you're just not slamming a bunch of work their way. The fourth torpedo hidden under the water is actually your average close rate. And if you're closing less than 35% of the work that's coming in, you've actually got a problem. You're spending all this money to bring in leads on marketing and business development, but you're not closing those leads and not turning them into actual cash. And the 2 things that you could do to fix that torpedo under the water, one is get better at targeting only the job types that you can actually close. So a lot of times we spend all this money on getting all these mold leads that never convert into jobs. eliminate those out and focus on the water mitigation jobs, which you're really good at closing. And the second thing is actually getting intentional on, if you have business development reps or you have somebody running your website, on how they're marketing your services and explaining your services out there. Because a lot of times we'll get leads for like water damaged cell phones and a lot of other stuff that really can't even turn into a job. And then the last thing is training your project managers or your closers that are going out there and seeing jobs and training them on how they can actually turn those leads into potential jobs. And the last torpedo under the water that can kill your restoration business is your pipeline. And what I mean by that is the amount of jobs that you have currently sitting ready to be signed, right? And in Albee, we actually have this pipeline tracker where you can see what status all of your different jobs are in. But if your pipeline is less than 2.5 times your goal for the month, you're actually in the red, and you need to go out and market and bring new potential jobs to sit in the pipeline so that way you can close them. In my book, Restoration Millionaire, I actually give you the entire Restoration Millionaire method, which walks you through step by step how you can go out and scale your pipeline from $1 million to $10 million over the course of 5 years. So the overall theme is, it's very important for you as a restoration business owner to not only run your business just based off of your gut or the feelings and the emotions of the company, but also really double click on trying to find those torpedoes under the water. Not to sell you Albee, but we do have this amazing tool called Albee Analytics that's able to track all of these different metrics that I gave you and a lot more, so that way you could always be on the lookout for those torpedoes under the water. Consider it like that sonar that sits on the ship, and it constantly is just looking for those torpedoes, and it gives you that feedback before the torpedo comes in and hits your ship. If you like this content and you want to hear more, we are very motivated and driven to propel the restoration industry forward, and we come out with different content like this every week. Please click that subscribe button and notification bell, and we will be back next week with more valuable tips for restorers.